My name is Andrew Nance, and I'm a member of the Answer Coalition and also an organizer within the Black Lives Matter movement. I really want to thank ABQ Justice for inviting me to speak today. I hope that my talk can help to put the struggle in Albuquerque in a more national context by really conveying my experiences as an organizer in LA. Since its inception, the people in this country have sort of seen the differences in skin tone and culture as a warrant for exploitation and dehumanization. Since its inception, the murder of people of color has seen no consequences in this country. So it should come as no surprise to see very high-profile cases and then acquittals in the absence of convictions. Nevertheless, these cases have sparked national outrage and united streets with fury of all nationalities declaring that Black Lives Matter. To understand this anger, we must closely consider the larger picture. A picture painted by the legacy of slavery and the habitual national oppression that confronts people of color. The black community has the highest poverty rate, and nearly half of all black children in America live in poverty. As a people, we are really suffocated by the mass media's showcasing of our natural features as undesirable or ugly, and the history that we're taught so conveniently excludes the contributions of people of color. America's notorious participation in slave labor sort of points to today's statistic that we make up 25% of the global prison population while only constituting a mere 5% of the world population. 2.3 million people are incarcerated in America, and roughly 1 million of them are black, which I would like to point out is more people that were enslaved in 1850. The lack of jobs that possess a livable wage, the denial of adequate health care, the struggle to attain a livelihood that many of us will probably never experience, presents the decision to either wither away or do what is necessary to survive. The measures we take, and the measures that we must take, under the circumstances that the system keeps us in, are criminalized because the justice system is designed to work in favor of the security of the rich. And when we get out of jail, we are haunted by that section of the job application that inquires about criminal history, and we have an inability to receive a loan for a home or a car. We cannot participate in voting. You know, America has been bred to associate melanin with crime, poverty, danger, ignorance, and lack of civility. All of these traits that nobody actually attributed to them make it all the more easier for other social groups to digest the systematic racism that plagues so many communities in this nation and the racist violence that ensues because of it. So many avenues in society hold down people of color, and particularly black people, and the horrific and unjustifiable murders of Mike Brown and Eric Garner were the last straw. It took the loss of so many lives for us to finally regain the confidence to fight back, and as a result we have the Black Lives Matter movement. Or rather an uprising of the national community banded together despite their differences to declare that the state will no longer continue to pluck us off one by one without a fight. The driving force is that the people are simply fed up with the brutal racism that confronts black people and morally outraged at the murders of unarmed people across the country that are happening in their own neighborhoods, and that the killers responsible rarely ever get sentenced, you know? Take, for instance, Michael Dunn, a civilian, not a cop, and a member of a very small club of racists who went to jail after killing an unarmed black person. Only Dunn wasn't sentenced for killing Jordan Davis. He was only found guilty of attempting to murder two of his friends that were with him on the last night of his life. Racism is alive and well, and white supremacy has existed far prior to the birth of America, and it would be foolish to believe that it does not exist today, and that it is not the source of many of the problems that the disenfranchised face. Unless, of course, you're anti-racist and you recognize the rampant discrimination that regularly confronts people of color and historically oppressed nationalities. Otherwise, you might see a reason for the disproportionate mass incarceration of black and Latino people, as well as Native people. You might not be shocked to discover that many of the targets of the abominable police practices, including stop and frisk, broken window policing, gang injunctions, shoot first, ask later, are people of color. Time and time again, this justice system displays grave negligence to confront the racist reality of people of color. Just in LA, over 600 unarmed people have been killed since 2001, and 0 officers have been convicted for it. You know, police don't serve or protect the communities that they exist in. They really act as a tool to maintain the gap between the rich and the poor. And we can never forget that many of these killings are stemmed in racism, but at the same time, we cannot take police violence out of its proper context. The context in which very few extremely rich people enjoy their wealth that they've profited from the meager salaries of the workers, while a growing majority of us experience poverty. The case of James Boyd and Mike Brown no doubt have stark differences, but they are also very similar. The primary similarity is that they're not here today because of the way that the cops interact with these lower sectors of society, and the fact that the cops play this role whenever they confront people who are seen as sort of undesirable, and whenever their sort of ego is bruised. You know, a lot of cops have this sense of entitlement to the unconditional respect and obedience, even when they're humiliating and dehumanizing people in their own neighborhoods. You know, people rose up the people that rose up that were fighting for Mike Brown and Ferguson, they were also fighting for the justice for the other Mike Browns in the neighborhoods across the country. Just as Richard pointed out earlier, this has been going on for a very, very long time. And I would also just like to commend Albuquerque for rising up in unprecedented numbers and winning justice for James Boyd. I would hope that something like that can be replicated throughout the rest of the country. And I think that the death of Africa in LA, an unarmed homeless man suffering from mental illness who was shot while held down and surrounded by 5 police officers, all on tape, further demonstrates that point. You know, the point that the war on the police and waged on poor people in lower sectors of society is the same everywhere you go. And I think that his killing also bears a very strong likeness to that of James Boyd. Police militarization and mass incarceration does not stop crime. It destroys families and the futures, and the solace that should exist in the immediate community surrounding your home. Meeting the people's needs stops crime. Give us a job with a livable wage so that we can actually survive and meet all these other needs that you so conveniently hold away from us. A complete eradication of police violence will require measures taken far beyond legislation. We need an alternative to policing, and we need to chop from the cops from their funding. We don't want funding for these killer cops in our neighborhoods. We want funding for schools. We want funding for job programs. We want funding for after-school programs for our youth. We want dignity and self-determination. And Ferguson has really ignited the consciousness of black people and oppressed people all over the country, and inspired a great willingness to struggle, and it demonstrates the power of organizing to the people who are told every day that they have no alternative but to submit to the violent existing authority. You may be seeing less of the Black Lives Matter movement on TV now, and to some it may seem as though the movement is dying, but if you think that we're going to go back to being silent, you are making a sad, sad misjudgment. Thank you.